Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I am your host, Nicole Begley, and today we are continuing our money conversation with one of your favorite guests, Heather Lahtinen. So stay tuned. You're going to love this one.
Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. If you're a pet photographer ready to make more money and start living a life by your design, you've come to the right place. And now, your host, pet photographer, travel addict, chocolate martini connoisseur, Nicole Begley.
Hey everybody, Nicole from Hair of the Dog here. And guess who's back? Back again. Who's that? NSYNC or is that Backstreet Boys? That was a little past my time.
It was one of those boy bands, right?
I was more of a New Kids on the Block genre since I was born in the mid-70s. But anyway, I digress. And you heard her voice. You heard her once. You heard her before. It's Heather Lahtinen from the Flourish Academy, Elevate Coach here at Hair of the Dog. She's back with us. Your favorite guest.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you,
Welcome
Nicole.
Back to the podcast, Heather.
Hey, I have exciting news I want to announce. I don't believe I announced this on your podcast, but I recently received my certification as an NLP practitioner. I am a certified Neuro Linguistic Programming practitioner. What does that mean? Thank you for asking. It helps me to help people examine their thought patterns and their beliefs, which is exactly one of the things we focus on when we talk about money.
Oh, yes. I love it. That is so exciting. I know that you've been working so hard on that certification over the past several months because it is a lot.
It was intense, yes. But I think I'm better positioned to help people. I said, what's your stance in this podcast on using swear words? I don't usually use
we
words.
usually don't, but sometimes they just
Okay,
slip out.
I'll spell it because there could be a child listening. But I said to some people in Elevate recently, I said, I'm going to NLP your ASS if you don't watch out. Almost like it's a threat. Like you're going to get NLP'd.
And they're going to love it. And they're going to love
right.
it in the end. But anyway, yes, that's so exciting. And pretty excited to bring some of those extra exercises into our Elevate program and occasionally into a bonus training in the Hair of the Dog Academy. So fun. But today we are talking about that money mindset thing. We had one episode we recorded, which was episode number 95, which you and I talked about upgrading your life from things like trash cans to toilet seats and more.
Yep. And you know what? We received a lot of great feedback about that episode. So if you haven't listened to it, make sure you check it out. We're doing a series of episodes on money, but it seemed like that one really resonated with people. And I was getting messages that they were upgrading things and they were laughing about the trash cans and the toilet seats. And it was fun. And the underwear. Oh, I know what I got. Yeah, I got a message about someone upgrading their underwear, which I thought was great.
Now, when I went to Costco just last week, I'm like, look, yeah, I'll get some new underwear. So there we go.
Okay, for the sake of clarity, I hesitated to say this in the last episode, so I have to say it now. There's no way you would catch me dead in Costco buying underwear in a package. Okay, that's just not how it's going to roll, okay? It's going to be somewhere else. It's going to be a little bit different, but I understand the point, which is don't wear underwear with holes.
Amen. See, my standards for my underwear are apparently a little bit lower than yours because, let's face it, my entire wardrobe comes from basically Target or Costco, an occasional upgrade to White House Black Market when we're actually used to mix in with actual strangers in the wild in real life, but that hasn't happened in a while. And yeah, I go for comfort. So
I know you do.
Anyway, there's that.
Okay.
As I'm actually recording this right now in my pajama shorts from Costco.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, listen, whatever works for you. I typically dress up when I come to my office to work because and this is different for everyone. Well, hey, listen, this raises a good point because it doesn't have to look like either one of us, excuse me. You could upgrade whatever you would like. And it could be something really simple and inexpensive. It could be something more expensive. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. I come dressed up to my office because it helps me to work better. You come for comfort because that helps you to work better. So it just depends on your style.
Yeah, 100%. So anyway, go listen to that episode and you guys, it'll all make more sense here in a minute. There was a lot of random things. There was, heated toilet seats, toilet bowl cleaner, waste baskets, underwear. I mean,
Vacuum
nothing
cleaner.
was left. Nothing was left unturned.
Right.
Not a lot of photography talk, but it all applies actually to your life and your photography business. But anyway, today is part 2 of our 6-part money series training. So we're going to do it throughout the rest of the year at least. And today we're going to talk about how to start to uncover some of these money stories, because if you're a living, breathing human, you have them.
Everyone does. I've never met a person that doesn't have some type of money story. And even as we explore this, we continue to sort of up level, but there's still another story. It's always the next one to uncover. So it's not like this work is ever done and you've ever reached the end. You're always just uncovering more and learning more about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the hardest part about this really is learning to uncover them. And once it's really like anything. Once you start practicing it, it becomes a little bit easier. It's kind of like, when you first started photography and you're looking at this image and someone's like, oh, there's magenta in that image. And you're like, magenta, what?
Right.
It looks like a dog. Because our brain tricks us because it knows that the dog's supposed to be black. So it tells us, hey, that's black. But once you start to practice seeing these different colors, you can't turn it off. For instance, when you move into your new house and they have LED lighting in all the closets and all the room that has a magenta cast.
Right.
I've accepted it now.
Have
it's been 3 years.
Right.
Usually every once in a while, I'm like, and I do have daylight balanced lights in my office, which I mean, when you drive by, they're so stinking bright. People drive by, they must think we are growing something in this room because
and they're blinded, right, by
so
your
bright.
light.
But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about how to uncover these money stories. So, Heather.
Yes.
What would you say if I kind of took you through some of these exercises and saw what came up for you?
Ooh, I would love it. I'm a little bit nervous because I've absolutely made progress in this area, but I know, do you know how I know I'm not there yet? Because my bank account isn't where I want it to be.
Oh, right? 100%.
So right. That's a very clear indicator. If you log into your bank account and you look at it and you are not swimming in more money than you know what to do with, there's a money story.
Yep. Yeah.
We just have to find it.
Yep. And then you'll find one and it might lead to another and
That's
it starts to unraveling all of these things. But that's good work to do.
It is important work.
Mm-hmm. And as we do this, I know you guys sometimes like to just log on and listen to Heather and I chat because we're just, I don't know.
That's what we do.
Not very formal here in Hair of the Dog land. But anyway, I want you guys to think about it from your perspective and really pay attention to what comes up for you. And Heather, how do you know if there's something there? Like, what should people look for as I say something? They're like, oh, like what should they be present to?
That is a great question. So with money, as with anything in life, if something triggers you, there's work to be done. Whatever it is. If someone says something to you that triggers you in a certain area, you have to think to yourself, okay, I have work I need to do in that area. If something triggers you or brings up some type of emotion, negative emotion, I would say in this case, or some type of trigger or feeling that is unwanted, there is work that needs to be done in that area.
And what could those triggers be? I mean, it's not always like your voice saying, oh, it's not even like like a belief coming through your head. It's really could just be like a tightening of the chest or like just really something very, very minor.
Right. Well, that's a good point. So what you can do in that case, if when you ask me a question, if someone hears that question and they're like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Just pause for a second, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what are you feeling in your body and where? Because, for instance, if you're not sure how you feel at the conscious level, your body will tell you. So if you feel maybe a tightness in your chest, or you feel like you are constricted, or kind of you tighten up, that is a physical indicator of an emotion that you are maybe not understanding yet, or you need to explore. Now, the opposite of that is if you feel super relaxed and very open and calm and peaceful, then there's probably not an issue in that particular area. And that's a good way to gauge it.
All right, awesome. No, that is exactly what I was looking for, because really it is just being aware of like the most minor things and then asking yourself, what's causing me to feel that way? Or what am I making this mean? Or why do I think this? Or, and then starting to ask yourself maybe what's happened in the past. We'll get there. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because after this, we'll talk about how to start digging those down. So are you ready for
am.
pop quiz time?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to ask you some different things, and I want to ask you, Heather, how does each of these make you feel? Meaning, do you feel like, oh man, that would be awesome, or that's pretty cool, or like neutral, or is there like like one of those kind of negative feelings somewhere in your body about it? All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. When you see someone driving an expensive car.
I love expensive cars. I drive an expensive car. So I don't have an issue with a car currently. But you know what's interesting? I'm wondering if maybe when I answer these questions, I should talk about how I feel now versus how I felt prior to doing a lot of this work. Like 3 to 5 years ago, or maybe even a decade ago, if I saw someone driving a really expensive car. So this is like personal growth and development, Heather, right?
Yeah.
Before all of the books, right?
When you were 5.
Yeah, right. Before podcasts existed, I would see an expensive car and I would think, oh, well, they must be rich, must be nice. And it would have definitely a negative tone to it, which looking back was 100% jealousy.
Yeah.
They had something that I wish I had. And now that I drive a nice vehicle, there are times when I almost feel like, I wonder if people are looking at me that way, the way I used to look at. That's interesting, isn't it?
That's another little level to unpack there, because that's your little bit of ego, like, hey, look at me now.
And in fact, when somebody sees me driving my car, I almost make excuses for it. Isn't that interesting? Like, okay,
like
so
excuses to rationalize why.
Yes. So I drive a Mercedes, and when somebody says, and I always try to keep it clean and nice, and it's just so sleek looking, and people will say, wow, that's a nice car. And I say, oh, well, I bought it in 2009. Like, it has 122,000 miles on it, and I paid cash for it. And did you know that there is a line in the Mercedes group that's actually really affordable, probably more affordable than your SUV that you're driving? And like, I have to explain it.
Right. I think that is definitely, that's a whole nother podcast about being able to just accept compliments, just accept what is and what you're comfortable with. Because how many times do people do that? If, you're wearing a shirt, somebody that, someone's like, oh, I love your shirt. And you're like, oh, thanks, I got it on sale.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah, right. Like, instead of just saying, oh, thanks so much. We feel like we have to rationalize it.
We have to explain it. Right. Rationalize it or explain it. So what are we doing?
We're trying to prevent the other person from judging us. Probably how we used to judge other people.
There it is. 100% yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Okay.
All right. So, and I also want to make a quick point. It's going to be a 5-hour podcast.
Right.
A quick point, though, about some of these, like the expensive car might not be something that triggers you, but something else, like seeing someone buy expensive furniture, does. So it could be similar but different, because all of our values, for instance, I won't spend money on expensive shoes, but I will spend money on expensive furniture or vacations.
What
so
is that? You just bought a couch. How much did that couch cost you?
No, I got that was just here I go. I'm going to rationalize it. It was just a regular Lazy Boy sectional for our media room, which is fine. It's $5,000.
Okay. I know some,
But
so
it wasn't leather. We didn't get leather. It was just plain old fabric because we were scared of the cat's nails.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. A $5,000 couch, and I know a friend that has an $8,000 couch, literally makes my head want to explode. I cannot understand that.
You haven't sat in the comfort that is this couch yet.
It goes back to what you said literally 2 minutes ago, which is everybody has different values.
Yep.
And what's important to them. So when I hear someone say they spent $8,000 or even $10,000, what's that really fancy line of couches?
Restoration hardware, everything. Yeah.
Yes. They spent $10,000 in a couch. I get really irritated by that because I think, well, if I had $10,000, I wouldn't be spending it on a couch. I might be going on vacation. You're
judging.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And it's not fair. I recognize that, but it's just because that's not where my priorities, and everybody has different priorities. But that tells me, Nicole, that I have work to do in that area.
Right. Yeah.
Or I wouldn't feel that way. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, congratulations on your couch. That's amazing. I'm going to come sleep on it.
I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah.
Right.
You'd be happy for them that they have something that they find value in.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Uncovering things left and right.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another one. Go back to your early Weddings by Heather days. And what about when you hear of a photographer running a $300,000 a year business?
Okay. I was very clear on that one. I thought to myself, if they can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
That actually gave me great hope and inspiration. And I thought, how are they doing it? That's amazing. I'm going to figure it out because if it's possible for them, it's possible for others. So that triggered me in a positive way. So it's
you
not
have good stories around that then.
Yes. Yeah. Like it's possible.
Stories that are serving you, beliefs that are serving you.
Correct.
Where some people might see that and immediately think, oh, well, I haven't done that yet. So I must not be cut out for this. I'm not worthy of this, or I don't have what it takes to get there. So that kind of thing can really send people in two very different directions.
Oh, that's a really good point. Does it deflate you or does it elevate you? Right. Yeah. And for me, it elevated me because I thought they could do it. So can I. But I can see where that might feel deflating to some. Like, how am I going to ever be able to do that?
Well, and if it is deflating, it just means that there's some belief that you have underlying that's causing you to feel deflated.
Right.
So again, all of these questions are truly just to uncover, okay, where am I starting to feel that kind of deflated or that tightness, or just, you're either going to feel positive or negative, and then occasionally it might be neutral.
Right.
But most are either going to be like better or worse. And the ones that are worse, make special note because we're going to dig into what that could mean later. All right, here's another one. When Bitcoin reaches 65,000 a Bitcoin.
I get mad and I roll my eyes because I heard about Bitcoin. I wouldn't say super early on, but fairly early on. And I thought, should I buy some? And I didn't because I'm somewhat risk averse. And I thought, it's not real money. Like, it's virtual. What is happening? There's no way this is going to go anywhere. Of course, I don't have any knowledge in this area, but I listened to a couple of tech podcasts and they were talking about this years ago. And I thought, oh, maybe I should just buy a little bit. And I didn't. And now, of course, I'm rolling my eyes. But and then you feel like, oh, it's too late. I missed the boat.
Right.
I should have done it years ago and I didn't. And now I can't. And now I'm mad. So I definitely have some stories around that.
I have that story back in March of 2020. We all remember what happened that month when the market kind of corrected quite a bit. I had some money in my retirement account that was just waiting to get invested. So I bought some Google stock, which has gone up 150% since then. And I'm in that same boat. I'm like, man, I want to buy more, but I probably missed the boat. But is it going to continue to still go up? Probably. All right. Anyway, next, when you treat yourself to a spa day.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm really into self-care.
What Heather 10 years ago said that.
No, absolutely not. I would have 100% never done this 10 years ago, maybe even like 7 years ago. So this is pretty recent where I would splurge on something for myself and think that I am worth it and I can do it. But there is a limit to that. If you told me, give me a number. How much would I be spending on a spa
usually
day?
it'd be like 100, but what if I said $1,000 on a spa day?
Okay, so the 100 would be no problem for me. And probably, and this just, the reason I'm walking through this is because I want to share that everyone's going to be different. Everyone has a different gauge, a different way to measure. 100, less than 500, I would probably do. Upwards of 1,000, I would hesitate.
Yeah.
I would hesitate, and I would think, a day to blow $1,000? Like, who do I think I am? A celebrity?
Yeah. And these numbers, they change because it was not that long ago where I would go down to the farmer's market and there's this one vendor there that has the most stunning, beautiful flowers. And you get these giant bouquets for $10 or $20, like bouquets the size that you can't get anywhere else for that amount of money. And they're beautiful. And I would rarely ever get one because I had this story of like, it's wasteful. They're just going to die. Like basically just it's wasteful. Like why are you going to spend your money on that? They're only going to live for a week. And I finally changed that because I'm like, wait, is that flower or those flowers on my table? I'm working from home. I walk into my kitchen 37,000 times a day. Are those flowers going to bring me $10 or $20 worth of joy? Yes.
Of course.
Do they make me feel more abundant when I walk into my kitchen? Yeah. So there's all these extra things. And, and $10 or $20 when I was, 23 and just graduated college would be very different feel than now where my husband and I both have good jobs, so that fluctuation of money, like we get comfortable at one level and then, it takes a little while to get comfortable with that next. So I don't know, Heather, in 10 years, you might be totally comfortable with that $1,000 spa day.
It's possible, right? Good point.
All right, perfect. So those were just some questions to kind of, oh wait, there's one more. It's my favorite. When you see a list of the world's wealthiest people.
I think that's fun. I can't identify with them though. And I caught myself recently saying, so I'm a big fan of Jamie Kern-Lima. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, which she sold to L'Oreal for $1 billion. She has a book out called
Billion.
Yeah, a billion. She has a book out called Believe It. And I just love her. I love her story, everything about her. I highly recommend following her and reading the book. And I found myself saying these words as I'm reading and hearing this. I cannot imagine that. And I thought to myself, as long as I continue to say that I cannot imagine it, I will never happen. Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So, and it's not that I am currently aiming for $1 billion because that is a pretty big number, but what about $1 million?
Right.
If you walk around, or what about 100,000 in your pet photography business? If you walk around saying, I can't imagine that when somebody says, yeah, I have a $250,000 business. Mm-hmm. If you can't imagine it, you're never going to have it. So I caught that, but to be honest, Nicole, I'm struggling to bridge a gap that is that wide.
Yeah, right. That becomes into those numbers that are believable, like at a believability step.
Right. Yeah. And so it's funny because the name of her book is Believe It. That's pretty funny. And it's Believe It because It Cosmetics. Yeah, right. So it's a play on words. Super clever. And I'm reading it and I'm like, I can't believe it. I can't believe how this is even possible. She worked so hard. She was so scrappy. I love the story with QVC and how she managed this. And she actually had a couple of deals fall through prior to that. L'Oreal had made her an offer a few years prior that was not really that great. She didn't say the number, and then she was really disappointed. No, definitely not. And it just didn't work out. It wasn't just the number. It was like there was a whole bunch of legal issues. But when they came back to her and it did work out, I mean, it's just truly unbelievable. It was $1 billion sale and the first in cosmetics history. And she started a cosmetics company when that market, nice parallel, Heather. Thank you. Everybody says the photography market is so saturated. What about the cosmetic industry? And she started a brand new cosmetics company and then sold it. And this has not been that many years ago. So that was very inspiring to me. But again, I kept saying, I can't imagine that. So I'm starting to see things that I previously would say that. And I'm saying, okay, try to imagine it. Just try.
Right.
Can you? And see if it's possible. because then maybe it can become possible.
Yeah. And one of the best ways that I like to do or to find a way to start to believe that is to look for proof. Like, can you find anyone out there that's running a $250,000 pet photography business? Yeah, there's people out there doing it. So, if it's possible for them, why is it not possible for you? All right, let's move on now. So that was kind of our general to kind of gauge where we might be having some hangups. Now I want to move on to some questions about spending money and where you might feel a little hesitation, trepidation, I might say. Because
I'm a saver. I am.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yes. All right. So how do these make you feel?
Okay.
You get a large electric bill.
Oh, wow. Really? That's the question?
It sure is.
I just got an electric bill for $500. Isn't that a lot? That's a lot.
It seems like a lot because I live in North Carolina with 2 air conditioners and it's like 90 outside every day and mine is not that much.
And
my house is brand new, but your house is not old.
I have a new home and 2 air conditioners, and I thought it has been rather warm and maybe just, I don't know. Okay, that got to me a little bit. Now, I can pay the bill. It's fine, but I would prefer a $250 electric bill. And now I'm going to be that crazy person. Like when I was little, my dad would lose his mind if you left a light on. He would say, do you think we own the electric company? And we would get yelled at for leaving lights on. Well, now my parents actually live with us and my dad leaves lights on. And I say, do you think I own Duquesne Light? Do you think I have stock in the electric company? So I blame him, of course, but because the roles have reversed. But I was like, you guys, really? I don't know. $500 just seems like a lot for an electric bill.
Yeah.
Do you think that means that I still have issues in that area?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's okay that if you're used to like, oh, whatever, my bill's usually $250 and now there's like, well, it's $700 this month. What the heck happened? That's taking something by surprise of a bill you weren't expecting. So certainly there would be some trepidation there, some, some not overly positive feelings.
Right.
But, I think, which we're going to get into later, but like, this is a great way to reframe. I mean, how many people right now, we're recording this, Hurricane Ida just slammed the Gulf Coast. Like how many people in Louisiana would like to have electricity right now?
Right.
Like
that's
a lot
good
of them.
Point. Yes,
so,
of course.
This happened for us. It was 2 Christmases ago, maybe, where my son had something, poison ivy. I don't remember. He had something, then he was on, and no, it wouldn't have been poison ivy for antibiotics. Regardless, he had some, elementary school, something that he ended up being on antibiotics for, maybe strep throat. Regardless, he ended up having a reaction to it. So he ended up, and it was kind of like it wasn't closing his throat, but he was like, it's hard to breathe. So we went to the emergency room.
Yeah.
And he was fine and gave him some, steroids and all good. And, then we came home and this is like 2 weeks before Christmas, we get the bill and, we have insurance. I mean, my husband works for a pharmaceutical company. Like, it's good corporate insurance. And we still get a bill for like $500 for that little trip to the ER 2 weeks before Christmas. And I've grown because my new thought was, man, I am so thankful that this $500 bill doesn't ruin our Christmas, because how many people would get that bill right before Christmas and just be like,
wrecked.
That's it. Like I can't get my kids Christmas presents. I don't know how I'm going to pay the mortgage. So anyway, oh my God, look at me. Heather, NLP me.
I know. This is actually incredibly rare for you to get emotional.
I know.
I wonder, you're very sympathetic to the needs of people. And I love that about you, because you're right. If someone gets a large bill before Christmas, there might not be a Christmas. And that's devastating.
Yeah.
So,
especially when you have kids.
That makes sense. But I'm glad that but I'm also happy that you are in a spot where you can say, oh, thank goodness. Like you're super grateful about it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The next one I have for you, I'm not as grateful. I haven't evolved myself quite as much to be grateful for this one, which is when you have to send a large check to the IRS.
Oh, the heck with them. Okay. This happened to both of us earlier this year. And both of these checks were rather large. And you and I were trying to talk ourselves out of our own misery. But we were in agreement here. We were saying, okay, this means I'm making money and this is a good thing. That means business is going well. But there is just, I think, no greater pain than writing that check. I really just don't.
There really is not. And my biggest beef, IRS, if you're listening, this needs to change, is that you do your yearly taxes and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. You had a bigger year 1 year, so now you owe this money. But then it affects your next year's estimated payments and you're paying taxes on money you haven't made yet. I had this happen a lot when I was still doing photography full time because my biggest months were always the end of the year. So I'm paying quarterly estimated taxes based on my year-end revenue in 4 even chunks when I'm like, dude, I just had first quarter. Are you kidding me?
Right. It's like, so wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
So IRS, let us pay on our profit per quarter and we'll send you a profit loss statement with our check. Good Lord. Anyway.
I actually have lamented we have the same accountant, to our accountant about this because I said, his name's Matt. I said, Matt, I don't have that money. Okay. I had it personally, but I didn't have it coming in from business.
Yep.
Because
me too.
it was an estimate and I had a really, really good December 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So that skewed everything. So the first quarter in March, I'm paying this really, really quite large estimate. I don't have it. So
at the same time your main tax bill is due.
That's the worst. That is the worst. And I'm like, there's no guarantee that I'm going to make the same amount of money that our businesses are,
right.
They change a lot. They're not,
right.
It's not the same amount every year. So that actually does drive me crazy. And as of this recording, our third quarter is going to be due pretty soon. And I'm still not making what I had made in the fourth quarter last year. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm literally in the same boat for the first 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter makes up for it. But I'm paying this out. I'm writing these checks. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So, and I have been working on this. I have been diligently trying to process, how can I reframe my thinking? Yes, I'm making money, or I hope I will make money.
Right. Like, well, I haven't made this money yet, but I'll get it back, I guess, from the IRS later. If I don't.
But I'm not, I'm not into letting the government borrow my money
for free.
Right. So that I for sure still have issues around that.
Yeah. Well, okay. We got to NLP ourselves around the IRS.
Right.
Oh, all right. Next up, hiring a house cleaner and or lawn service.
Okay. That's interesting because in my tenure, I've had a few housekeepers for short periods of time in my life. And then I always end up at some point saying, oh, I could just do this myself. Why am I paying someone to do this? So I for sure have issues in that area. Now, the lawn service is different. We live on a lot of property and I love working outside. So actually, we fight about who gets to mow because it's a lot of fun. So I love to mow. That's not an issue. But the housekeeping definitely is something I maybe need to explore.
Here's another one. What if you had a house cleaner coming over and you didn't have a whole bunch of work to do and you were like, I really want to sit down and read, but she's cleaning your house?
I actually had that scenario happen once. So right after Evan was born, I had a house cleaner and it was the right time in my life. I had 2 small children. I was shooting 30 weddings. I could afford it. And I distinctly remember I took him into my daughter's room and he was an infant. I mean, like newborn. He was sleeping on my chest and I was taking a nap, was like in and out, dozing in and out, because you're so exhausted.
Yeah, right.
And she was cleaning my house. And I was like thinking to myself, I was super, super grateful. I was so thankful that I, at that point, had the funds for her help so that I could rest with him because I desperately needed it. Now, if I just wanted to relax, like put my feet up, read a book, and it wasn't, I don't know. I think I would struggle with that. I feel like I need to get up and help.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. But then you look at her perspective. Would she rather have your job of cleaning your house so you can sit and read a book, or you get up and clean your own house and she not have that job?
That's a great reframe because we typically only think of our perspective, but you are providing employment for someone who greatly appreciates it. So you're absolutely right. And I've gone back and forth. Like I said, I've had someone a couple of times throughout different seasons of my life. I currently do not because I'm telling myself a story. And that story,
what is that story?
Yeah, this is a good one. Oh, by the way, not proud of this. I know it's messed up. I'm saying, well, my kids are older and I have more time. I can just do it myself. And why would I pay for that when I could? And meanwhile, it's not terribly expensive, at least in our area, to hire someone. But I think, well, why would I pay someone? I could just do it myself. And if I hire someone, it's probably just because I'm lazy. And okay, I'm not lazy, right? I'm not.
Yeah.
But that's a story that I'm telling myself.
All right. We'll dig that one a little deeper later.
Right. Not
Next
helpful.
Up, dinner with friends. You don't drink, and they order a really expensive bottle of wine, and you're splitting the check.
Okay. So I struggle with this one. I do. But I'm much better than I used to be because my husband is the most generous serving person you will ever meet. And he will buy somebody that expensive bottle. So as a result of my husband's behavior, I have learned to be more generous in all things, but especially in this area. So if I go out with friends or I'm anywhere, when I come home, he always says, "You paid, right? Did you pay?" Like he always wants us to pay. He always wants to be generous. And I am because of him, because of his influence, but there's still a small part of the saver Heather that's like, well, but if they wanted to pay for it, I'm going to let them.
I love it. Well, I mean, a lot of these, I think that's really common for people to, want to save. I know I used to be a lot, this would have bothered me a lot more before when I was working a job, I was working in the zoological industry, making like hardly any money. So there wasn't a lot of extra money to go around. So yeah, to be able to be a little bit more generous when you can is great. And I don't know, I feel like it all comes out at the end of the day. Like if they're people that you see regularly, then, sometimes we pick it up, sometimes they pick it up,
Right.
It all evens out eventually.
And it does depend on where you're at and what stage of life you're in financially. But what I have learned is that in order for more money to come in, more has to go out because you have to let it flow. And what I was doing was hanging on too tightly. And when you do that, you block it. So learning to be more generous has also allowed me to accept more in.
Yeah, I love it. All right, this next one. This is like my favorite way to spend some money. Usually miles, though, is what I prefer. Upgrade to business class on a 10-hour flight.
Okay, 10-hour flight. Oh, 100% yes. Well, I shouldn't say that because it really does depend on the amount. Like, how much are we talking here?
Oh man, we'll go like to Europe, as if you're flying back to Italy again.
Oh dear,
9-hour flight.
Right.
It would be like $1,500. I mean, this gets more complicated when you're flying a family of 4. So let's just you.
Right. You can't. Right. I can't factor that in because the answer would be a hard pass. Except I really don't think I'd have a problem putting my family in regular class and me in business. I really don't.
I haven't gotten there quite yet. I'm like, how old do the kids have to be and how guilty will I feel?
When they can earn their own money, they can do it. Yeah. Okay. It does depend on the season. It really depends on where you're at financially and if you're feeling abundant or scarce, because there are definitely there have been times this year where I would have been like, heck yeah, 1,500, I'm in it. 10 hours is worth it because I can sleep. But there have been other seasons where I'd be like, no way. There's no way I can spend that. So I would, though. I would if I felt like there was money flowing and I felt good about it.
And this comes down, I think, a lot to the individual value. Like I value this a lot more than my husband does because he can sleep on any plane at any time and coach. And so he can still get sleep on a 10-hour flight. I can't. Like, I need to be
Same.
horizontal in some way. Like, I can sleep on the floor of the plane, but I'm not allowed to do that. So hence I need to sleep in actually something that gets somewhat horizontal. So my value for that's much higher than I think someone that can sleep.
Well, right. It just depends on your tolerance and your comfort level. When we did fly to Italy, I wouldn't say at the last minute, but maybe a month or two prior, I looked at upgrading my ticket because I knew I was going to have a hard time on that flight. And my ticket, I want to say, was originally $600, which I thought was really inexpensive to go to Italy. Yeah. And the upgrade cost, I think it was around $7,000.
Especially for a last minute upgrade. Hey, I got Nicole's pro travel tip. Oh, are you ready?
Yeah.
So you buy your economy class ticket, your $600, $800 ticket to Europe. And then if you have some miles on that airline, you request a mileage upgrade. And they don't do it ahead of time, but if it's like 24 hours before the flight and they haven't sold for cash those business class seats, they will let you upgrade for miles and usually a little bit of cash. So I did this going to Spain way back in the day. I bought the ticket and then I did the mile upgrade. It was like 20,000 miles and $300. Yeah.
Yes.
And we're going to Iceland in September. So we have economy tickets, but we're on the mileage upgrade. So I think it's like $500 now and like 25,000 miles. But I'm like, yes. So that's how you guys can get in the front of the plane for much less money.
Yes.
Follow me for more travel tips.
Right.
All right. Okay. Next up. So that is spending money. Next up, we want to talk about receiving money because when I say, how do you feel about receiving money? Heather, what do you say?
Oh, bring it. I can receive any kind of money. I have no problem receiving money.
All right.
All of it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to hold you to that. Someone owes you money and you need to ask about it.
Yeah. Nope. That's not happening. So I would really struggle with that because I feel awkward because I don't like confrontation. And I feel like that would be because I tell myself a story that it would be confrontational, which is not necessarily the truth, right? I can NLP myself too. I know that that's a belief that I have, like asking for what someone owes you should just be a conversation. Like, hey, don't forget you owe me that money. But I don't know that I could do it. And so I have a general rule about that. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Which is if somebody asks us to borrow money, we as a couple decide if we can afford to give it to them without wanting it in return. Especially if it's a friend or family. Oh, yeah. And it's only actually ever happened one time in our lives where somebody came to us asking for a significant amount of money. And it was a difficult discussion. And we decided to give the person the money because we didn't want maybe, I don't know, any tension or anything in the relationship about owing money or making payments. So we gifted them the money. I still have a teeny tiny little bit of an attitude about that because again, my husband is super generous and to him it's like, oh yeah, sure. Well, no problem. And I'm like, okay, let's pause for a second and think about this. But it ended up being fine. I mean, we didn't ask for it back and I wouldn't want to. What about you?
Yeah. Well, this is so hard. And I think part of it is the story I make up of confrontation, which, I mean, if they're going to get confrontational, like, do I actually care about that relationship? Probably not.
Good point.
But the other one, I think the bigger one that we don't see is that we think if we're asking for money, then they're going to judge us as being like only caring about the money more than them.
That's right. Or it's going to look like I need money.
Yeah. No, for me, at least it feels more aligned for me that I am caring more about what they think of me, of what me asking for the money says about me and my values and what I value.
Interesting. So that just goes to show you we could have we're projecting different things based 100%. On, right. Because for me, it's like, I don't want them to think I'm in need of money. I want to say, well, can you pay back this money? It's not that I need it. We're fine. It's totally fine. I don't want that person to think that I'm not managing well.
Interesting.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Here's a good one. Sharing the total for a very large photography order. Now, this has happened to me a lot where they're like ordering images for this wall, and that wall, and this part, and an album, and the digital files. And I'm like, my God, did they look at the price guide? Did they know what this is going to cost them?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, have to say the amount, and you're like, $6,800.
Right.
And
Right.
you're like, okay. You're like, what?
Well, I do it without an issue outwardly, but there is a little bit of an internal struggle. And I actually remember distinctly, you and I had this conversation. You had a client in Pittsburgh who I think spent, I'm pretty sure it was over $5,000. And you said you slid the invoice across like whatever the table to them. And in your head, you were saying, shut up, Nicole, shut up, Nicole, shut up. Like just like whatever was happening, because here's what we want to do. We want to say like, oh, I'm going to give you a 10% volume discount.
Yeah, right.
Because you spent so much money. And that's because we're insecure about what we're about to ask for. But if you recognize that, you can say, okay, you can have this internal dialogue. I'm experiencing this moment and they're not asking for a discount. Why in the name of Mike would you give a discount when nobody's even asking for it? So you just slid the invoice across and like, there's your total, and they pull out their checkbook or their credit card and they pay it and it's done. And you walk out with some relief, but there's still some resistance there.
Yeah. And I think that comes down for a lot of things. I think a lot of us have this, I don't know if it's a belief or we just look at what we value and what we'd spend money on. And I think a lot of us are not necessarily our own client, where we would be like, well, two reasons, I think. Number one, I think we do have this money story that it's like, oh my God, there's no way I'd spend that much money on photos. But I think that is doubled down by the fact that I'm not going to spend that much money on photos because we have the ability to do so much of it ourselves.
Right.
For instance, if I was super handy, there's no way I'd pay someone to come hang a TV on my wall.
Right.
Because I'm not. That money to spend to have someone come do that is a heck of a lot more valuable to me.
Yes.
So to our clients, what we're delivering to them, I think, has a whole lot more value to them than it does to us.
I have never heard that before, and I love that thought. I'm actually processing this still as you were speaking. So what you're saying is that because we know how to take photographs, we wouldn't necessarily, and we're not our ideal client, we wouldn't necessarily pay for us because we could do it ourselves. So the value is just not the same.
Right. Or we're like, oh, I have some friends we can swap with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yes.
I can get this. Basically, I can get an industry insider discount.
Yes. Yes. I have thought that.
Yeah. But I think there's another piece to it too. For instance, when we see something that is just like, oh my gosh, I need to have this. For instance, just 2 years ago, maybe I got new photos of myself, branding photos done down here.
They are beautiful. I still love those photos. In fact, so much so, Nicole, I actually contemplated coming to visit you and hiring that photographer.
Carrie Allen Photography, and she is amazing right here in Charlotte. Yes. I mean, because I knew exactly what I wanted, and it was really hard to find. And so then and I knew I couldn't do that myself. And I had some friends that could do it, but they lived all over the place. I mean, I can't ask them like, hey, I'll fly you down here and take a couple days out of your life. Like, it's not going to happen. So anyway, but when I found her and I was like, this is it, I would have paid anything.
Right.
Carrie, if you're listening, don't raise your prices. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
You're totally worth it.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, all right.
Okay.
Here's a new one. Here's a good one. Oh, this is fun. Borrowing $10 since you forgot your wallet from a friend. No big deal, right?
Well, I guess.
Like me, if you and I went out to lunch or something and they didn't take Apple Pay, so you couldn't use your phone, you're like, hey, Nicole, I left my wallet at home. Can I borrow some money? Yeah, it's fine. But what if you left your wallet home, your car was on like empty, the gas station didn't take Apple Pay, and you needed money to get home and you had to ask a stranger?
This actually somewhat happened to me not too long ago. I had put my wallet in my camera bag and I had brought my camera bag into the house, and then I left and I was driving to a store. Actually, I was driving out to YM Camera, which, okay, I didn't need my camera bag because I had been shooting maybe the day prior. I had my purse. And my car was like on a quarter tank. I never let it go below a quarter. When it's a quarter tank, I go get gas. I'm not that person that runs it to the light. The light on my car has never come on. It's just not a thing for me. So I have a plan. I'm going to get gas, when I get close to YM Camera, because actually in Ohio, just over the border from Pennsylvania, it's super cheap. I mean, much less.
And New Jersey is much cheaper too. And they pump it for you.
Less. Yes. So I was like, oh, I'll just get it in Ohio. So I pull into the gas station and I as soon as I grab my purse, I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I always have a spare $20 bill in my glove compartment, and one of the kids had taken it out for something and I didn't replace it.
Ice cream.
And probably.
That would have been me.
Probably. And it's so funny you say that, because it almost for sure was ice cream. So I'm at the gas station and I'm like, oh my goodness.
I'm in Ohio now.
I'm in Ohio, so I'm about an hour away from home. Okay, maybe I could have made it home on that tank. I don't know, but I'm not the type of person that would try. So I had stopped for gas before going to the camera store. So I go into YM Camera and I am like mortified, red-faced, like embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. And these are very good friends of mine. And I said to Robbie, I cannot believe I did this. I left my wallet at home. I am completely out of gas. Could I borrow $20? And I will, Venmo you the minute I get home, or right now. Actually, I could Venmo you right now on my phone. I can't believe I did this. And he was laughing. He's like, Heather, it's like no big deal. Here's a 20. Like, who cares? What was going on for me?
Yeah, what was going on in your head? What were you making it mean that you would think Robbie would think of you?
That I'm an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't have anything, maybe, I don't think, to do with the money per se. It was like,
just that you don't have it all together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. That's it. I want you to think I have it all together.
Yeah.
And if I feel like you perceive me as not having it all together, I am destroyed. And which I know is ridiculous. You guys, I understand it's ridiculous, but I was so embarrassed by that. So I can't imagine asking a stranger.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, no. It's like bringing up, like, I can literally feel this in my body right now.
Well, you only have some work to uncover there, huh?
And I don't think it's the money. I think it's the perfectionism.
Right.
Like,
it's the judge. And I think so much of this is, what are people thinking of me? How are other people judging me, perceiving me because of these things? Because even though we say we don't care, we do. Because if, deep, in our subconscious, if nobody likes us, then we starve and we're alone and we die.
That's right. We're not accepted. Right.
Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Raising your prices.
I had no problem ever raising my prices. I was always on the cutting edge of this. With no disregard. I mean, like, throw it all out the window. The prices are going up $1,000, $2,000. I was always pushing the limits on pricing because I thought it was fun and exciting. And listen to this. I also, in some sense, didn't feel like it was up to me. And what I mean by that is that I look at prices in some cases as a very basic supply-demand model. Very black and white. If there is more demand for the supply, then the price has to go up. Mm-hmm. I was always busier than I wanted to be. I had more clients than I wanted or needed, which told me to raise the prices. So it was not ever an emotional decision for me. It was straight up business. It was economics. Supply demand. I don't have enough time to photograph all of these weddings, and I'm getting multiple requests for the same date for people who want to book me. The price needs to go up. And I just kept doing that, and things definitely slowed down in each time. You know what I did find though? And this is just me being a scientist, and this is a big experiment, Every time I would go over $1,000 mark, so say from 2,800 to 3,000 or 3,200 or 38 to 4, there would always be, it would slow down a little bit. People would hesitate because it went over a certain number, and then it would pick back up. And then I would, a year later, do it again.
When it slowed down, what did you tell yourself? Did you have a moment of like, oh man, what did I do?
I don't know that I did. I don't recall feeling that way. Maybe for a split second, I would hesitate and think, was that the right move? And then I would say to myself, no, they're going to book later in the season because a budget bride typically books a year and a half advance. And a bride that does not have a budget means that she's going to book maybe 6 to 9 months in advance. And if I fill all of my dates, fast. Well, listen to this. a bride gets engaged at Christmas, so December, right? There's two types. There is one bride. So say a bride gets engaged December 2021. There is a budget bride who will get married in the summer of 23. So a year and a half engagement.
Yeah.
Those brides were booking me.
Yeah.
The other type of bride that gets engaged at Christmas plans a wedding in June for 6 months out because she doesn't have budgetary issues. If my dates are all filled with the brides that booked a year and a half ago, I cannot accommodate the high-end bride.
Yeah.
And I recognize that pretty early on. So I raised the price so that, and I still had people booking me a year and a half in advance. I mean, that still could happen. Yeah. But typically I was getting my bookings like 9 to 12 months in advance as opposed to 18 months or 2 years in advance. So raising my prices just made sense because I thought I'm not going to be the same photographer this year than I am next year or the following year.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, I don't want to give up a Saturday 2 years from now, but that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother limiting thing. Okay. Last one. What about receiving a $500 financial gift?
Easy. Thank you.
Okay.
Deposit.
Then what about a $500,000 financial gift?
Who gets these?
Where? Well, see? Well, like, is there an amount where all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what strings are attached? Or like, it isn't like, it isn't like a parent that, passed away and had something. Right. Like, this is like some random aunt or something that's just like still alive. They didn't pass away. They're just like, here, $50,000.
I feel like I have imagined this scenario and been very open to it. I honestly have. Like, I have a lot of aunt and uncles, and I have great relationships with all of them. I think one day somebody's just going to give me like $250,000, $250,000. So I really don't think I haven't. I mean, I don't know. I guess I won't know till it happens, but I would be very humbled, of course, and very grateful and thankful. That's amazing. But I also look at it like if this person has enough money that they can be that generous and they choose you or they choose me to offer that to, that's an honor. And I think not accepting it would be quite rude, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I don't want to be rude, so I'll take it. And that changes again who it is and what your relationship with that person is and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys just all these different random situations just so you can kind of see if there is something that resonated you or something that kind of came up. So Heather, now that we've gone over that, what should people look for? Like, how do we start to reframe this?
Well, the first step is always acknowledging it because you cannot fix what you don't accept. So if there is an issue around something, and you had said this in the beginning, pay attention to how you are feeling or what you're thinking as you were asking these questions. And maybe someone hopefully even took notes. They could write down and say like, oh, this really triggered me, or this made me think really negative thoughts. Then there's work to do in that area. However, I will say this, everybody always goes to the how. They always say, okay, Heather, I have issues here. How do I get rid of them? How do I resolve them? I know this because I'm one of those people. I always say, okay, I get it. Just tell me how. There's actually much less efforting than you think. It's more about the acceptance and the acknowledgement and maybe understanding what's driving behavior, where it came from, possibly your parents or your childhood. That's more important than the how. The how is much less part of the equation. They say it's like, 80 to 90% of the battle is just acknowledging what the battle is, because that awareness all of a sudden has you thinking differently. And you also said this, you now start to catch it. You catch different scenarios where you're like, oh, this is bringing something up for me. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why and what I need to explore. And there's definitely some exploration there. Where did it come from? Why? Oh, that's what's driving my behavior. And once you recognize it, you can choose a different behavior. You can course correct, but you can't do that if you haven't identified it. So that's the first step.
Yeah, that's a great step. And I think one of the other, like the next step after that is really like looking for a way to reframe it. Like that medical bill 2 weeks before Christmas, like instead of like, man, I thought I had insurance. Why am I getting a $500 bill? And instead it's like, holy cow, I'm so grateful that, A, that my son could get treated in the middle of the night, and B, that I have the funds to do this. So, like that electricity we talked about, there's how many people in the world would like to have an electric bill and can't. If you guys have something for the IRS that can help us, let us know on Instagram.
I was literally just going to say that. I was going to say, Nicole, those reframes are great. They all make sense. What are we going to do about this IRS situation? I'm struggling.
Truly, I would feel so much better about it if you could just actually pay the taxes on the money you made.
Yes.
Because I'm like, it's like this crazy up and down. So, 2019 was a pretty good year. And then 2020 was not as good, but I had to pay my taxes based on my 2019 numbers. So now in 2021, I went from paying obscene estimated taxes last year on money I wasn't making to now this year. I had overpaid so much last year that I haven't paid estimated taxes at all. So next year I'd have to start paying them again. I'm like, can't I just look at my profit loss and give you my 35%?
Yeah, that is exactly. I check my profit loss every week. I run the report every single week. I know the exact numbers. I could calculate that 35% on the quarter instantly to the penny, and I could pay it, and I would know. I would love if we could do that.
All right, Heather and Nicole for president 2024. Except not really, because that job seems miserable. Pass. Don't write us in. All right. Let's wrap this up because this has been going on for a while, but it's so good. I could seriously talk about this all day. And from the feedback that we've gotten from you guys when we talk about this kind of stuff, you also love it. So yay.
We
and
have
if you're
more,
still here,
so
if you're still here an hour in, apparently you're enjoying it. So thank you. And yes, we will have more. If you want, DM Heather or myself on Instagram. She's at Flourish Academy. Is it just Flourish Academy or Flourish Dot? It's just Flourish Academy on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And at Hair of the Dog Academy for me. And let me know, both of us, what
triggered you?
Yeah, what triggered you for this? And also if there's any other money things, you're just man, I just have no idea how to get over this. And maybe we will use it. We should do a Q&A money episode.
I wonder if that's how we should wrap it up at the end of our series.
Oh, yeah.
But you can start submitting questions now.
That's
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Do it. All right, guys. 95, episode 95, Upgrading Your Life. And then this is episode 101. And we'll be back in October with another money series. But in the meantime, thanks again for joining us. Heather, let them know where they can find you. Of course, they can find you in the Academy and in the Hair of the Dog Elevate program. But where else can they find you?
They can find me on the interwebs at flourish.academy. That's the website. Podcast is Flourish Academy, Instagram, Facebook. If you just look for the Flourish Academy, you should be able to find me.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us again, and we will see you next week. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, go ahead and take a screenshot of this episode on your phone and post it up there on your Instagram stories, and be sure to tag us at Hair of the Dog Academy. And we would just love to see how you're listening. And full disclosure, sometimes we just like to give away a little pet photographer swag in the form of Hair of the Dog t-shirts and sweatshirts. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and share that screenshot of this episode. And don't forget to tag us at Hair of the Dog Academy. And while you're there, maybe you want to jump on over to our account and see what we're up to on the gram. Would love to connect with you. Thanks for listening to the Hair of the Dog podcast. If you want to check out the show notes for access to any of the links that we shared in this episode, as well as any additional related resources, simply go to www.hairofthedogacademy.com/101.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Hair of the Dog podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to leave a review. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. One last thing, if you are ready to dive into more resources, head over to our website at www.hairofthedogacademy.com. Thanks for being a part of this pet photography community.